Few things are scarier than the unknown. What scares therapists? Going deeper, lingering in emotion.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
Man, it's been a while since I got to be in the studio with you again, Ryan.
Welcome back.
Yeah. It's good to be back.
A lot going on. About to get busier.
Yeah, man. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Busy training schedule coming up, but looking forward to the opportunities for sure.
Absolutely.
Got a chance to go out to beautiful Alaska, a new kind of like budding EFT community there, and just it was exciting to see, them and the different people groups that they get to serve up there, doing a great job. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Top of the world.
All right. Speaking of, kind of even dropping into this now, though, it's the What Scares Therapists series, lingering in emotion, just learning to stay.
Going deeper, yep.
Going deeper. I guess I want to start off for a quick moment here and just even confess this was a big, scary area for me at the beginning. Yep. My own kind of self of the therapist around it was I was afraid of kind of stoking the emotional fire and things getting escalated and out of control. So this was a big deal for me to learn. Or I'd be afraid I'd grab an emotion and I would get impatient and want to hurry up and do something with it before I linger with it and completely understand it. So I'm excited about today's topic. Yeah,
I think there might be an extra step for us. For some males in some cultures, it might be a little less natural to do this than some females in some cultures. And not to stereotype, but I think, it's a little less, if we look at seventh grade, conversations with different genders and all the stereotypes, there's probably some difference there. It's scary for me sometimes, especially early on. Sometimes now, my only fear is I just won't get there. If I get there, I'm thrilled, but am I going to go lean towards this place and irritate somebody and try to linger and not get anywhere? Now it's like, I'm off track. I've wasted 10 minutes. So that's the sort of the fear that comes up for me sometimes, because it is the unknown. You don't know what's going to be there when you get there, which makes people want to do something else.
Yeah,
for 100%. Good reasons.
So I like that. So even kind of here, it's some of the typical fears for therapists here is I won't make it there. Like, in other words, I won't be able to even get into kind of like that emotional zone to even have it as an option to deepen or linger. Or if I get there, what's going to happen? And then there's so many fears. Either they could shut down on us, kind of a trauma memories and things get awakened here. Or one is when you're trying to deepen and linger with one, it completely just blows out the limbic system or triggers the other partner.
Yeah. Or you're going to get blocked.
Oh, there.
So many things can go wrong.
Okay.
No wonder we don't do it enough.
That's right. That's right.
Or sometimes we're doing it too early. The organization's not there yet. The blocks need a little bit more of our time. As George says, therapists tend to be primary emotion junkies. Just like get beneath it, get beneath it, get beneath it. And there's some wisdom to that, but it's got to be attuned.
That's right. Because even whether it's with knowing George, even if it's anger or frustration, can you linger with that? And not just be like, I want to get under that. Linger with it first. And if you meet the function of that one, for me, I picture it as you keep turning emotional handles, you keep getting more access to depth. But anyway.
I would just add, this is a really important topic. So I hope people listen. I hope people are resourced somewhere, if not from here, somewhere, EFT Cafe or Success and Vulnerability or your local community or maybe in your office doing role plays, because this really is one of the primary keys of EFT. Okay. And we get accused somewhat falsely of being overly tactical as we're trying to get this clear. But we've said this before. We just want to do tactics so that we can get here
100%.
And really be with people fully as they explore sort of uncharted territory within self so that we can reshape the connection.
And I want to stay here just because I agree with you, Ryan. You said this is a very important area, so listen up. Why is it so important to be able to linger in emotion?
Because this is the part that's cut off. This is the part that gets disowned. When a relationship becomes unsafe, when you become unsafe with self and other, you just, in order to survive that, you start to disown these more vulnerable parts of you. And so goes the closeness in the relationship, right? The distance has to increase as people get rid of their vulnerability. So the presupposition is that when people come in and they're in an unsafe relationship, they've dropped this off. And these parts they've dropped off are the best parts of them. You know, all the parts are important, but that vulnerable part, that longing, the fears, the sadness, say something really great about them. Right. If you don't care, you know, if you study a sociopath or someone, they don't get too sad.
That's right.
Right. So this is a beautiful part of people that we're going for, even though it's very painful.
Wow.
That's how I'd say it.
No, I agree with you, Rand. I like that. Thank you for that. Because another way I say it is when you linger with it, you really get to understand it and to be able to invite the full essence of it into it. Of course, in EFT at progressing levels, because there's a way where you're going to linger different in stage 1, that's going to be drastically different from lingering in stage 2. Would you say that that's a fair assessment, maybe?
So it's a great discussion. Actually, you could do a whole episode on that because I don't necessarily plan to linger differently.
Ooh.
It's more about what they can tolerate.
That's good. That's it.
So in stage 1, I have an idea that, you know, if they give me another word or another sensation for fear, that's saying that might be towards the edge of their tolerance window, where once I've done that 15 times, I know their tolerance window is wider. And so I'm going to get into the fear and stay in the fear and walk around and see what else is in the fear. So yes and no, but there's no way for me to know that. And it's not like your clients are preset to only talk about stage 1 things. You know, they can bring up whatever they want to bring up.
That's right. I like that, Ryan. Just being read in the moment. Should I linger here? Do they have the capacity? Maybe this is one for us to ask too, because I get asked this one as a trainer. You know, what is Ryan Rana, what is your eyes or maybe your body picking up on, noticing to tell you I have room to linger here?
That's a good question. I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good thing to pressure myself with. It's an innate sensation.
There you go.
That I have part of this and not all of this. And sometimes maybe it's eye movement. You know, as they're continuing to search up and to the right, you know, I think that tends to go to memory. It's like they're continuing to excavate in front of me, which lets me know their body is still in the process. That'd be my best guess
I like that.
Of what I might be seeing. But
can I give one of your other tells?
Yeah.
This is when you told me at the really beginning when I was trying to learn from you and George's different style. You say part of what makes you linger is when you don't have a clear image.
Oh, yeah, that is true. That's more true than what I just said. Yeah. Yeah.
But that is your innate one. Like if Ryan can start for you, if you start feeling an image or you get a clearer picture, is that what's happening inside your mind?
Yep. When a metaphor comes to mind, that's my body saying that their body's gotten me close to clear.
Yeah. And you help me find mine as well. And I don't people see my tapes and I do take these deep breaths. And there is a part where I can be aware of it and almost do it instinctively at the right moment. But there is a part when it hits me, I'm like, whew.
There it is.
And I'm like, uh-oh, that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the moment.
Yeah. So your own body's telling you.
Yeah. That's
Nice.
the innate one, you know.
Nice.
So anyway.
Very cool.
So good. So I'm glad we could kind of just help y'all find that part about why this is important and how can you begin to notice it.
Yeah.
Once again, push yourself. How do you know?
Yeah.
When you've kind of lingered in a place and it's becoming very real and salient for you.
Yeah. Good questions. And there's nothing like watching yourself when you're trying to deepen. One of the things that you'll notice when it comes to deepening and heightening, if you want to go back to the literature, is you often think you're staying longer than you actually are. So in that slower, more silent place, sometimes it can feel like forever. You watch your video and it's just like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, which is a good reason to watch your video.
Yeah. And there's danger to trying to do experiential work prematurely. There's danger to trying to do experiential work prematurely. Here's what I mean. I'm confessing on myself. I almost try to get them to do work with an emotional experience that they're not in yet. That's also why this lingering is important. To be willing to, I remember, Ryan, you challenged me one time in Memphis. I just need you to be willing, James, to go in and try not to make anything happen for 21 minutes. I think that's what you gave me, was 21 minutes. And part of that was to settle and allow the emotion in the room, I think, to begin to, in a sense, this is what I keep thinking of food, y'all, sorry, to let it start to cook in a way, to let the smell and the essence of it permeate the session. And then, because even the research would say, I think this is Brent Bradley and Jim Furrow's research, it's going to take about 21 to 23 minutes usually before you get a usable emotion that can really drive the energy of the session.
Yep. Well, or that can be used for change.
There we go.
Yeah, there might be emotions that come forward, but it just takes that long for people's, most of the time, for people's nervous system to warm up to you in the process to bring that kind of emotion forward. So, you can do stuff in minute 8, but just know in the back of your mind, sometimes it's like a little premature emotion.
That's right.
Yeah.
And be willing to, what we're saying here is to be willing to, one, focus. That's a big part of what we do, but also linger with it as it begins to emerge.
Yep.
To not let them keep shifting you off from that to that to that, because then they could extend that time out on you really quick.
I'm glad you said that, because that's a big key for me. And I tend to think this is more for me based on the weaknesses that I bring to the table. But when I do live demonstrations in particular, I tend to first of all, I want to spend time with people outside just for a few minutes and cheat, as Leanne says. But then I come in and I'm real focused. Here's what we're doing. Thank you for being here. This is a gift, all the things that we say. And then if it's okay, I want to jump in with what I know about the cycle. Here's your cycle. Here's your cycle. How are things right now, here and now? And as long as they're not hurting each other, I'm going to completely relax. I even take deep breaths. And again, as long as they're not being too reactive, I'm going to just hang out with them for 10 or 12 minutes. And that's a big key, because my nervous system's got to depressurize to let them depressurize before we sort of set that second stage of focus to get to work, later in the teen minutes before we hit about minute 20.
I like it.
Yeah.
So you think, I want to make sure before we get to the practical part, do you think we've set a good enough stage now to help our listeners understand the role of this, the function of it, and some of the fears around why therapists don't stay there? I don't think it's because they don't care. They have very good reasons to be afraid about what happens if we linger here.
Yeah, no, we're up against the break, but I would just add one thing, that Sue, always credit to her and ICEEFT and all that. She used the term from the start. I'm trying to think, the first time I read that would have been in the late 90s, but she used the term deepening and heightening, right? And so deepening is in a lot of models. Any model that wants to work with emotion, any of the trauma stuff wants to deepen, but heightening is a little different presentation. Not that many models tell you to heighten emotion. And there's a great paradox about that, because it's like, if I come to your training and I say, my back hurts or something, you're not going to be like, well, let's expand that pain. Let's get you to hurt even more, right? That's a great paradox that we're doing here. To move towards pain and try to heighten it is very counterintuitive. There's not people on the street in social situations very often that are going to try to heighten the very thing that we're trying to reduce. We do that because if we can heighten this, we can start to change it. We can start to get it more clear. We can start to get it co-regulated with. So that's a counterintuitive piece of this. It makes good sense when this is hard for people to learn. Or it scares us.
Thank you for that, Ryan. And I know you're right. It can feel counterintuitive. And tell me if I'm thinking right on this. Because when I think about heightening something like maybe a pain or some type of distress, like I had this case today where they came in and the pain's there, but it's only being whispered about. It's like they're touching it, but they're not really sitting with it. Yeah. And so when Ryan's saying heighten it, he's not trying to exacerbate pain, but he is trying to heighten the volume of that signal so it can be so it can actually be heard and responded to.
Of the felt experience.
There we
go. Yep. And one more thing, to me, one of the main reasons to deepen that I didn't have written down here on show notes is, especially when you have a non-responsive partner, a reactive in their protection partner, someone who's really there to tell their side of the story, which happens all the time. It's not nothing to panic about. But very few things change that position than taking their partner deeper, right? So they're all arms crossed and defensive and, well, you need to know my side of the story. And all of a sudden we hang out and we're able to linger with the partner and big tears come up and they go into a vulnerable space. And now you've shifted the partner's position without ever even talking to them yet. That's a good day.
All right, let's take a break and we're going to come back and get into some of the practicals of how do we help linger and deepen and addressing some of the fears that do come up when we do linger. It's an honor for Ryan and I to get to come to you on these airwaves, to meet you where you are with you and your clients who are pushing the leading edge in your clinical work. And we're thankful for this opportunity and for the work that you do. And we want to invite you that if you believe in the concepts of this podcast and you find them helpful, as we do, we just invite you to be able to invest and to help keep this mission and this project going. You can support us by going on Venmo and looking for @Left Podcast. That's at LEFT PODCAST Left Podcast. And you can show your support. Once again, if you yourself are in a hard position or you serve maybe less resource population and therefore it affects your fees, please don't worry about giving. Just continue to enjoy. But if you can, we invite you to help support this mission and keep it going. Thank you so much.
So I was just thinking about what makes this scary, right? And as I said in the opening comments, there's the mystery, right? So as you dive off with someone into deeper places and you're going to hang out for 6 minutes or 11 minutes or 3 minutes, whatever it is, it'll feel long to you usually when you're in it, especially if they're not fully open. That's when it feels really long to our body, and it's not a complete mystery. If you've not listened to previous episodes on the order of change, or sometimes I call it the experiential stack. I don't know why I call it that, but you can have some idea of what's there. Generally speaking, there's an order. There's secondary protective. So secondary emotion and more protective emotion and behavior. Underneath that is the more vulnerable primary emotion. I get pushed every once in a while to define primary emotion. You really can't. It's the function of it. But if I had to say, oftentimes what I'm looking for is some variant of sadness, hurt, or fear. Right? And when you start to touch that, you start to see new things emerge. And so, you're going to stay in all those phases as long as they need to. And then below that, we drop into more stage 2 phenomenon, which is model of self or negative model of self, and sort of the fear of reaching. So view of self, view of other, before eventually we get to deepest attachment need. Right? We kind of generally know that's the stack of what happens most of the time for human experience. Of course, that can come in out of order, but most of the time it's pretty good guess. But after that, it's a mystery, man. You never know what you're going to get. And therefore it's scary. It's like, do I like to swim? Well, how deep's the water? I went to my pool last night in a neighborhood pool, and the deepest point's like 7 foot, and I'm almost that. So I was just real comfortable. But you take me out in a lake. I was in a lake last month, and it's 78 feet deep, and I'm not quite as confident, right? And so you don't know what's in there, and people that are in therapy even more so you don't know because something's hurt them, right? They live in protected states, which means they've had some experiences that are difficult, and so to be good at deepening and heightening, you got to want to know. My old professor used to say when he would hire therapists, do you want to know? If someone has had the worst possible things that have happened to them, do you have the courage and the interest and the desire to want to know? I can go with you. As bad as what you feel or as bad as what you've been through, do you want to know? If you don't want to know, then we need to have some different conversations, either like your own therapy, looking at yourself as the therapist like James and Chad do such a beautiful job teaching, or maybe this isn't the right profession for you, and that's okay too. But to do this well, you got to want to know, because when you dive off there, any number of things might come up. People's personal trauma, horrific stories of child sexual abuse, molestation, kidnapping, family of origin events, memories, things that happen, how people are horribly mistreated in their developmental years. That's going to emerge if you're doing a good job and being attuned enough. Attachment injuries in their relationship, bringing up things they don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. I mean, any number of those things can happen. So I think the unknown, it's hard to have a felt sense of confidence, so it scares us to go deep.
And which also, by the way, is what fuels their negative cycle.
Yep.
So part of the reason why we're saying you've got to go there.
Avoidance of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's not the emotion itself. It's the fact that that even they don't feel safe lingering, or they don't feel safe letting their partner or partners, whomever, linger in it with them. So therefore it goes it doesn't get to perform its function. It doesn't get to be sent to send out a signal to get a comforting response back towards it, which is the function of the attachment system. But anyway, here's nor there.
Yeah. And just thinking about ideas is use the body. The body keeps the score. The body also tells the truth. The body will lead you to secure attachment if we can surf with it well enough. So if you give me a word or you give me a movement, I'm going to trust the movement. And also it's a huge thing. We've talked about this before, but if you give me a word that sounds deep and vulnerable, most of the time I need to say, can you feel it right now? Where is it in your body? That's a huge litmus test to, are you using a word or are you in the experience? And if you're not in the experience, with EFT's theory of change, it really has very little value. I mean, it can have some organization value. You can stick it back in the assembly, but can you feel it right now? Where is it in your body is one of the top 10 most important questions in the whole model, for sure.
Which is a huge one also about the lingering. Because if they're just talking about something, but it's not a felt experience, then that tells me automatically, then we need to stay here a little bit longer until it becomes something that's real and alive in the room and not just something we're talking about from last week.
Yeah.
All right.
And monitoring depth is actually pretty tricky.
Mm-hmm.
So that George says that's the most common question he gets asked with kind of a frustrated tone from participants, understandably, like how deep is deep enough? And it's hard to give an exact answer to that. And then sometimes they ask, can you go too deep? Which is a really tricky one, because part of me says, nope, I want to go. When I'm an old trauma therapist, I studied child sexual abuse in my dissertation. So I know the pain, or I've heard of the pain a lot, when the client can go deeper than the therapist can. That's not okay. So in one hand, I'm like, you can't go too deep. I'll go with you. But on the other hand, you are my client, but the relationship is also my client. So if you start going so deep and I know that your partner is going to harm you, I've got to find a way to mediate that safety in that moment. And I also want to say this, how deep is deep enough? The answer is, correct answer is whatever is new, different, and deeper for them.
That's right.
So it's important that we don't compare depth from one couple to another. It's one of the most important answers when someone asks about neurodivergent couples, which is, a long discussion. But one of the things that really helps people is, like, this person maybe doesn't have ability to go deep. I'm like, how deep did they go last week?
That's right.
Can they go a little deeper? That's
exactly.
Enough. What looks deep in one relationship doesn't matter. It's what works for this relationship. And when it's new, different, and deeper is when EFT is on, because now we're going to set our Tango 3 enactment moves and start reshaping this thing.
And Ryan, I like that you bring that up, because I think that's also a good cultural nuance. If you work in a particular kind of cultural group or setting where lingering emotion maybe, which I think that happens for every human being, but I want to make sure I highlight what Ryan just said. The fact that you were willing to adjust it to the particular client and letting them in their experience set what's new, different, and deeper. I just thought that was good. If I come from a particular population where I've been taught historically that the expression outwardly of emotion is not something that's like as refined or okay to do, can you as a therapist learn to recognize my progression, even if it doesn't look like another person from another group? I don't know. I just wanted to bring that one in, try it in a way to highlight that cultural nuance.
Yeah. If I have a fixed barometer of what deep is,
Yeah.
then that's not cross-cultural.
Yeah.
That's
And
normative.
it's not attuned to the person.
Not
either.
attuned to the person. So we want to get away from wearing a badge of honor for how deep we go necessarily. At the same time, we don't want to take away from the importance of it.
right.
We don't want to teach EFT. We want people to catch it. But, just thinking about trying to get it practical here, something that I've seen helpful at trainings with myself and other people, the 2 keys to deepening, the 2 irreplaceable elements to deepening is number 1, time, and number 2, you.
Yeah, there we go.
No matter what your style is, if you're a talkative like me, or if you're an introvert like a Gail, that's great. There's lots of ways to do this well, but that's the 2 things that can't be replaced. So one is the full use of you. Mm-hmm. I've got to be in that place in that dark place with them, for them to have enough safety, mirror neuron space to go deeper. And then it just takes time. You got to find a way to stay there a little bit longer and let their body bring it to the surface. And so, developing your interventions and your style and use of self is how you find a way to sort of stall or linger or hover in that place. An extra 3 minutes goes from frustrated to big tears and feeling sad and lonely. And that's everything in terms of shifting that relationship.
I like that. And that's definitely a big one for my use of me in that spot. That's where I keep, that's where we, in EFT, we can use proxy voice, where we talk as though we're in their shoes. And what I try to do is, as I talk from the client's position, I talk with their emotion loaded in my body. So let me make sure I'm getting what's going on for you. It's like I try so hard to get my partner's attention, but no matter how hard I try, it's just like nothing I do can get through. And that just leaves me feeling defeated and hopeless. Then I'll do something. That's where Ryan talks about the EFT noise. Whew. So hold on, can I slow down? Because we really got to understand this place. So that's one way I start setting up for my linger. There's running it through me, those noises, and then asking for that permission to stay longer.
Yeah. I like to think about this through one of the old frames we taught probably, 15 episodes back on priming and presence.
Oh, yeah.
And how those are 2 different parts of the same bird, so to speak, in EFT. And you see people deepening and heightening sometimes just with presence, which is awesome. Use of self, they just kind of slide over into depth. Mm-hmm. And the client hardly knew they were doing it. It just felt like the conversation shifted that way. I'm pretty sure the therapist knew, but they went deep, and all of a sudden there were big emotion coming forward. And that's awesome. We all do some of that. If you have a client who is less open or on the edge of being open, and or, if it's not your natural style as much to just deepen, I see people leave EFT, and that's I don't like to hear that, because you can do this in different ways. You can be overt about this and make your process explicit with things like, hey, if it's okay, I want to spend 5 or 6 minutes with you right now, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm going to see if we can look around in your experience and find maybe some places of pain that your partner doesn't understand. And this may feel a little bit awkward, but this is so key to getting what you want in this relationship. Can we do that? Is that okay?
I like that.
Or you can call time out. You can say, hey, I need 3 or 4 minutes right here. Like, that's fine too. In fact, I think some well-defended clients are more likely to cooperate with you if you make it clear what and why you're doing that. So it's kind of like a little building a mini platform.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Other ways I've seen lingering. I think I'm stealing this one from Leanne Campbell and somewhat George too. Ryan helped point this out at the early part. Sometimes what Leanne and George would do to linger is they would just do these summaries, loaded with all the significant emotional handles or protective moves that the client were making. And they would use those summaries just to hold space for a little while longer. And they might say something like, So hold on a second. Let me make sure I try on what I think I'm seeing. That's a little bit of Sue's influence. So what I just saw happen here was this. And right as your partner shares about that, I see you take this deep breath and you just slow down. And what you let me know in that place is it's just kind of sad. Wow. And that summary is meant to hold and contain you in that spot. And then this is what I'm taking from Ryan too. It's another practical one. And then just do almost like a lingering intervention. And it's just kind of where Ryan will say something and he just starts letting it trail off at the end. And he just leaves this big open gap.
Yeah.
And it does something in those few moments. And it's, by the way, it feels like forever when you're the therapist. But when you're watching, it's like, oh, it wasn't that long.
Yeah.
But that moment to just let it breathe allowed it, once again, the emotion to kind of cook a little bit is like what I call it. But
Yeah. Yeah, Chad caught that watching videos with me. I didn't even know I was doing that, so that's bad on me. But kind of like a trail off. You know, you're in this place. It feels like this. Once again, you get this message, and then the pain comes in, just leaving you feeling so.
right there.
And it's hard for people not to sort of finish that sentence for you.
It is.
Which is a little bit less directive way of doing that. So yeah. So kind of what you said there, we were thinking at the same exact spot here. You know, if you're new to this and you're maybe just learning to do some affect assembly or some tempo, whatever you want to call that, you know, when you have live emotion, remember, don't keep doing that. Throw that cycle to the side a little bit. Mm-hmm. And you know, you don't want to pollute the emotional deepening with a lot of cognitive stuff at this point. You know, the cognitive stuff has a role when people need some safety, need a little bit of organization. But yeah, I would say a little bit different than what you just did. I would say if leave most of your tempo over there when you're with the E. But what you can bring is a little bit of the M. And as you walk around, so M being the attachment message or the attachment meaning, because attachment meaning and emotion work so closely together. So once again, you get that message that you don't matter. And your partner's happier without you. Mm. Again, here we go. This gets so dark and just leaves you feeling, right? So you can just little cues of attachment meaning, walking around an emotion can really be effective because those deadly attachment messages are part of what keeps this cycle moving really fast for folks. So now we're trying to use the very thing that hurts them to help them.
I like that. I've seen George use that one right there. It's just like, oh, he just kept doing me, me.
Oh, yeah.
M-E.
Gotcha.
Meaning, and then they give an emotional expression. Then he'll go right back to, and even when that sadness comes up, like, what's the message inside that sadness? Mm-hmm. Ugh. Wow. And then what is that like? And he just kept doing that over and over and just working them kind of like, and it was lingering.
Yep.
It was lingering.
It's hard to say if the message is that the most important person in the world sees me as a failure. It's hard, if you can say that, it's hard for emotion not to come up right after that. Mm-hmm. You might say it's impossible. Yeah. But I want to reiterate just something you said as we close, you know, to your point, because I was trained by those two folks as well, George and Leanne, and both of them will talk about when you're in deep places, when you're doing enactments, you know, at the right time, stay as long as you can, because that's the attachment channel down there. Mm-hmm. So instead of just like, you know, once you're in session, you know, 7, 8 plus, you know, you've kind of done some assembly. We have organization. We have a sense of the cycle. So once you're past that, when you're in those deep places, stay as long as you can, because the longer you're there, the more resourceful things are about to come forward. Mm. And they would say, so I'm not just looking to do an enactment. I'm looking to get an enactment and stay in an enactment at those key times. I'm quoting Leanne there directly. And she would say from that point forward, if I have it my way, and she can come on and correct me here, when they need a break or when they pop out, instead of going back to the cycle or some other kind of frame, I'm just going to meet them with a summary statement and then go right back down, right? So it's kind of like trying to work as deep as you can, as long as you can, once we're to that phase of treatment.
Thank you for opening that up, because it's not even just about lingering like in emotional words or concepts. We're trying to linger in a live experience. So if we are in like in between Tango Moves 3 and 4, and there's change happening that we're visibly seeing, hang out there. You don't have to move on. Like as when Gail was on this podcast, one of the things she said is Sue never wrote the tango to be a rigid linear process. Right. It was just a guide. Yeah. I like that. Anyway.
Yep. There you go.
And just 2 more quick, simple ones I don't want to overlook that help me with lingering. The power of reflection. And reflection is like, for me, sometimes when I want to linger, I'll just reflect the bodily processes I'm seeing happen in the room.
Yep.
You know, like, wow. So I just want to slow down because I can even see it coming up in your eyes, which tells me this is so important.
Yep.
So can I just slow down and honor what's happening right there, what I'm witnessing come up in your eyes? And then another one is keep validating them, validating their experience. Like, you're doing such a good job. I really appreciate how much you've grown in therapy, that your body's having more tolerance to stay in these places. So I just want to kind of be able to help stay in this moment, to help letting your body develop tolerance for this. Because normally the negative cycle doesn't give you this kind of space. So thank you so much. And that validation of the good reasons why it's hard to stay here, validation of the progress they're doing to stay there. So those are ones I use to try and help me linger and earn some more space.
Absolutely. Reflection, comment on what's happening right in front of you. Mm-hmm. It's a staple of EFT, no doubt.
Sue's favorite intervention.
Well, and finding attachment language is hard, because you could easily be like, well, you're being a jerk. So that's not what we're trying to say. But from an attachment lens, comment on what's happening right in front of you. And then nothing like validation to just take pressure off of people.
That's it.
To let more of your heart be seen. Mm-hmm. You know, the phrase I said earlier as we wrap up here was, you got to want to know. That's a big key feature to how I was trained back in the 90s, early 2000s. And it's true, and it's not easy. And so to want to go into deep, hard, traumatic places over and over when you got your own stress, when life is hard, takes a lot of courage. I want to say thank you for being courageous, for being an explorer, for managing people's pain and being a safe space. Our world needs it. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to agree and just shout out, thank you to all of you that are, listening here, and you are part of an EFT community. And if you're not, that's okay too. No harm. But those of you that are actively contributing to EFT communities in your different local areas, thank you. Because EFT is a relational model that really, I think we learn best when we learn it in relationships. So thank you for keeping a heart for the mission of trying to see to help other helpers help as we, learn EFT. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training, and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, DocHawkLPC.com.